Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today is Chris Rossini, our co-host. Chris, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Dr. Paul.
Yes, and before we start into our main subject of the day, which is talking about the evilness and the people who benefit from this monstrous system we have. And our system that we're dealing with, the financial system, is in so much chaos. And I still see and believe that the bubble's still getting bigger and worse and more distortion, more political problems and more hatred building every day. So we have a long way to go, even though the answers are available to us, and that's what we usually end up talking about. But like this morning, I mean, just a casual glance at the marketplace, it's in total chaos. Stocks are down, interest rates are up, and gold is down, crypto is down, and there's a lot of unhappy people. I saw the other day a report which was interesting. He said that well, if your money's in some investment, and you find it very boring, he says that's pretty good. That means it's not pretending it's going up artificially up, nor is it crashing. And that at least is an excuse for trying to relax. But a lot of people aren't relaxed out there. They're trying to figure this out because projections are difficult. It's easier to make projections and anticipations when you understand Austrian economics because just the nature of the explanation of how prices are moved and how important interest rates are and why government is very much involved and why, the statement that Biden alone has caused all these problems. He's amplified them. He's a mess, and he's made things much worse. He's a very dangerous person, but he didn't create all this bubble, the financial bubble with all the new money. That was done by Republicans and Democrats, and it's continuing. But we'll be talking specifically in a minute about who really has benefited from it. Why does it exist if it's not benefiting anybody and it doesn't make any sense? Why is it there? Aha! We have discovered the answer, which many of you already have figured it out. Somebody's benefiting from this. Somebody might be doing this deliberately. And the old saying, the rich just may be getting richer at the expense of the poor and the middle class. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. But before that, I want to repeat the offer from Birch Gold. We have a text number on the screen. The text number is there. If you want to get in contact with Birch Gold, you can get some information to help you sort out some of these markets. This is what you need, and there's no perfection in that, especially if you understand Austrian economics, because there's a subjective theory of value that's involved, and things don't go like you can't calculate every market by a computer. Keynesians and the interventionists say, oh yeah, all we have to do is give me a problem and I'll put it in the computer and they'll tell us exactly what the money supply will be. Look where it's gotten us. Sometimes they print trillions of dollars. It doesn't seem to have any effect at all. And then sometimes they say, well, we need more price inflation. And then when they finally get more price inflation, it causes more trouble than they ever thought they don't. Then they have too much. So if you want to get some information, free information from Birch, look at that text number on the bottom of the screen. And Chris, I want to go ahead and visit with you today about this system, which is a monster. And that's one thing I'll bet we could get the majority of the people in the country to agree with us right now. The planners who think they know everything, I think they would agree with a mess. But they would come up with more of the same or something new and different, but really not a solution. But I think the Austrian economists would agree with what we're saying, and that's the first step because they understand how this came about and why it came about and who's benefited by it. So if we understand that, we might come up with a better answer, and the answer is out there. The founders went through this. They had runaway inflation at the beginning. We've gone through wars and chaos and inflations and bubbles, and it's usually been worked out. But this one is different. This one is different because we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to real wealth. And they still hang on to this notion, Chris, that for some reason they believe that if the government just prints more fiat money, it's going to work out okay, because that was the solution, and a temporary reprieve with COVID. Yeah, just pass out a lot of money, and the immediate effect, it's sort of like the counterfeiter. He comes in and passes it out until the market just hey, they've been giving us counterfeit money. It doesn't work. Let's get rid of it. Let's spend it. So that is what's happening, but they don't understand that. They still think that just passing out the money is the solution, and yet really it's the problem. Because if you have fiat money and prices rising, because people see the big problem today, the average person on the street would say, well, the number one economic problem is inflation of prices. Prices are going up too high. They never come up and say, well, no, the problem is the money supply is inflated. They're printing too much money, and they're responding to the demands of the people who have control of our government. It's those Republicans and Democrats that are doing it. Nah, we don't hear that. It's going to continue. And I think what I'd like to think, Chris, is that we participate in trying to point out the problems that we have, and the one big problem that helps increase the amount of discord in the country, where the people are getting angrier and angrier because the rich do get richer and the poor get poorer. And that's why most people still look at prices going up. Their cost of living is going down. Right now there's a big debate on, will the key and most important issue for the voters this year will not be the economy, but it's going to be the Supreme Court, ruling with the Constitution, that sort of thing. So anyway, Chris, I know you've given this some thought, and would like to hear from you.
Yes, Dr. Paul, but before I start talking about corporatism, I do want to make a little special announcement that I think you would like. As Daniel pointed out yesterday, we're very pleased with Rumble. Our numbers are great, and it seems that the people that were in the live chat, there's a little community, have moved from YouTube over to Rumble, and that's, I received a message that today they are going to be wishing you a happy birthday, which your birthday is tomorrow. So I thought that was really nice, Dr. Paul, and if you wanted to make a quick comment before I start.
Well, I thank them, and for some reason it's something that most people, and certainly I never think, I always need to have a big birthday party. But I have to admit that over the years it was an excuse for promoting a party and getting people interested in freedom. So that was okay, and we've done that, and there's been so many that have wished me a happy birthday. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Very good, Dr. Paul. And okay, we're talking about corporatism. Corporatism is an offshoot of socialism. It was actually popularized by a very hardcore socialist, Benito Mussolini. And he called it fascism, economic fascism. And that is the marriage of power, which is government, and money, which is corporations. And Mussolini was very, very popular. He was popular with FDR, with Churchill, they loved this guy. I think he was on Time magazine like 8 times, because communism cannot work. You can't have one property owner, because then you have no market prices and you don't know what to do, and everybody starves. So, but if you have a highly, highly regulated marketplace, now you're onto something, and you can, just like the communists, rip everybody off, and that's what we have today. We have a corporatist system where the government and corporations rip us off repeatedly, and but the people have to support it. They have to go along with it, and that's where the media comes in. They pump out propaganda with scientific precision from every single direction, and the people end up, yeah, do it, do this, do that. And then at the end, you're just in regret. And today we see yesterday we see the CDC, they botched it. Yeah, afterwards it's always regret, but the robbery has already taken place, it's too late. So that's the system we live in, and that's the one we have to now, attack intellectually on how do you get out of this. And that's what we're going to give ideas on, the way back to freedom and out of this, government and corporation marriage.
Very good. And you're using the right word because we've used it a lot, and that is corporatism, and of course that will morph into something evil. Once things start easy and say, well, we just want to do this. A good example, the income tax. We're not going to tax the people, and even now today they say we're going to have 87,000 more IRS agents, but they're not going to tax the people under $400,000, dollars, that sort of thing. So the corporatism that is going on and has gone on is more appealing than if somebody marched in and said that we're going to restore, the fascist state of the Russian communists. That system, people would see it and they say, "Well, no, we don't want." So we even don't say we don't want socialism. But I think what corporatism and interventionism and welfareism is more seductive. I think you can sell that politically a lot easier because it can be incremental. It's always, one little tax on this person here, and all of a sudden we have to regulate here. We have to have, a little bit of control over those bad people polluting the air. It's always for good, and it's always a little, and then it's always incremental, and it is much more appealing. And but what it leads to is that the corporations then all of a sudden fusing, coming together with fascism with the corporations and the government, and that becomes fascism, and it really grows. And we're at a stage where it's very fascistic, and it's getting worse all the time. They do use the word in the social sense. This is not quite as violent as Soviet Marxism, and that is that you just have social Marxism, and that's a little milder, but it's still evil because it's using the aggressive, violent principle of hoarding people together and dictating to it. And we've just probably everybody watching this program and most people in this country have just gone through that example, and that is how they took advantage of the chaos with COVID. And somebody said, well, they responded to a natural occurrence and they overreacted. And other people say, no, they might have created the incident to begin with because that was not the traditional way we handled, flu and epidemics like this. It was never with the sacrifice of so much liberty, and that has existed. And we have continually moved in that direction. And I think it does emphasize this whole fact that the distribution of wealth becomes disassociated. The people who are in charge, the bureaucrats and the politicians and special interests, the lobbyists, and on, and the politicians who have to get in office, of course, to save the country, they have to take the money from the people who want their guy in Congress so that he keep voting for this stuff. So the system is designed, I believe, in purpose to transfer wealth. Oh, they say, oh no, the poor will not suffer. We won't take that much. We're just going to take this. But the corporations, really benefit, and they move on. And I think the merger of the two, which is the most annoying to me, is the merger of social media along with the government, because the social media is the one that does the dirty work and enforces the canceling a person and regulating their freedom of speech and not allowing people to, come together and express themselves. So that is a big problem. It's a threat to liberty, and it's not over yet, even though the people fortunately are waking up, and that's what we want to continue to do, Chris. Keep waking up people to exactly what's going on so that they know what they can do to contribute to the rebuilding of a free society.
Right, Dr. Paul. And, politicians left and right love the corporatist system that we have today. They love power. We saw with COVID, they love telling people what to do, even if it is so stupid and makes no sense. Just being able to tell people and watching them obey, that gives them a charge. That's the types of people that most politicians, not all, but most are. but they also like becoming very rich in this corporatist system. A lot of them go into Congress and into so-called public service with no money, and they come out multimillionaires. And it's because their laws, they tilt the tables in favor of certain corporations. And the politicians end up getting rich themselves from these laws, either directly or indirectly, like through the stock market. We see that in the news now. And we see Elizabeth Warren, we got to ban, politicians from getting rich in the stock market. But that is not the answer. Even if you banned it, that's asking the legislators to legislate themselves from not getting rich. I mean, good luck with that. But even if they did, there'd be loopholes out their wife could own the stock, or they'll set up a shell corporation to own the stock. So the problem is not politicians owning stock. The problem is the politicians intervene and legislatively, tilt the tables towards certain corporations to get rich, and then the politicians own the stock and they get rich too. So it's the interventionism that is the problem. And Elizabeth Warren is not going to not want to intervene. That's her thing. She wants to intervene. So this will continue. Politicians will continue to get rich. Corporations will continue to get rich, all because of legislation.
Yes, very good. And some people in high places, they understand this, and they should be in a place where maybe they could help correct it. But if you take the Pelosi family, I would say that they might be an example of that complaint that you're making, that they may be benefiting from that. And even it's bipartisan, because the Biden family has benefited as well. But the whole thing is that it is very bipartisan. Now, you want to know who I think is the epitome of this system that has become well known, even though he's been around for a long, long time. He has an MD degree, but I don't consider him the family physician that I would want to have. But he's a physician. He's a scientist. His science has proven to be lousy. And yet, he's the top dog in this system that we're talking about. He became the highest paid, and still is the highest paid bureaucrat that we've ever had. Makes a lot more money than a president or Supreme Court justice would make. So he's making a lot of money and has more power and been around for a long time. But guess what? He must be a Democrat. No, he got equal support. It was an equal opportunity system because he knew how to play the cards. So he got appointed by Republican presidents. He just stayed in that office at CDC, and he ran the show, and he was in charge of all the good things that were done to make sure that the COVID epidemic would go smoothly and would get rid of that in a hurry. Everything he said turned out to be lousy, and so he got paid well though for it. He was making, last check on that was almost $500,000 a year that he makes. And then he's in his 80s. He's getting old, He's in his 80s. So, but he has a pretty good retirement account coming. The taxpayers think so much of him, and he's so great. They're going to, right now. It's estimated that he will get $350 million a year in retirement. But don't worry, if he runs short and then inflation gets bad, he has a cost of living agreement built into it. I'll tell you what, he knew the system pretty well. And but that shows you how bad it can get. You would think, so. Some people get discovered when they abuse the system and they steal and they defraud somebody, the politicians, and some even go to jail. But this guy ended up becoming, the more money he made, the more heroic he got, and the more the people loved him because he was saving us from this horrible pandemic. But I think I'll give a lot of credit to the parents of this country who woke up in a proper way and said, enough is enough. They're not solving the problem, and they're ruining our kids, and now we're suffering from the consequence of this. So I guess if anybody's going to complain, so we didn't do a good job, maybe we didn't pay them enough money. Chris?
Right, I don't think so, but I'll finish up, Dr. Paul. There is a way out of this corporatist system. First off, like communism, it cannot succeed. The difference is it lasts longer. Communism collapses faster because it's so irrational. There's at least a tinge of rationality in this corporatist system, and so it bleeds us slower. And it's been called, the corporatist system, a vampire economy because it slowly bleeds you to death. And that's why it's taking longer than the Soviet system. But the people in their minds have to be ready with new ideas, and those new ideas are the exact opposite of what we have. If we have the biggest government in history, we need limited government. If we have fiat money, we need sound money. And if we have hyper-regulated markets, we need free markets. It's not very complex, and Dr. Paul says, our message is not complex. But we're at a stage in our history where there needs to be a new desire for freedom. People are afraid of freedom, and the media has a lot to do with that. They'll scare you to death, and it makes you want to run to the government. But we have to wean people off the government because that's not where the answer is. And fortunately for us, the government is the best advertisement that there is. They keep hammering people over and over and over. And I just know anecdotally from the people around me that COVID episode was bad in people's eyes on how the government is. So, they help to make our case for us. But there still are too many Americans that are still afraid to be free. Someday that tide will turn. The pain will be too great from the government. And, at that point, whenever it is, we could start moving in the direction of freedom again.
Very good. We try to keep the answers non-complex because the solution is not complex. The problem is very complex because the whole system has been invaded. I have been amazed these last couple of years how well the enemy was able to infiltrate every system that we have. So it wasn't just that a few people got into the FBI and they influenced it negatively for a few people and gave out some favors. No, it's been infiltrated, whether it's the FBI, the CIA, whether it's the court system and the prosecutors, and many people put the blame right on Soros because he was smart in his plan that he didn't spend all his money on deciding between a Republican interventionist versus a Democratic intervention. He did it at the lower level, and it's in the universities and the medical system that he helped put in the right place. So it really is incestuous and very, very dangerous and not easy to cancel out. So I would say the thing of it is to narrow it down. Well, what is the number one problem? Why do they do that? Well, the enemy believe that it's proper and important that government have a monopoly control of aggression, and they can use it to design the system that they want. And they believe that's necessary because people can't reach out and find the truth in what they do, and they're all immoral. So therefore, since there's a vacuum there, it is their patriotic duty, and many of them feel like I have to do there to protect the people. I had a congressman once when I was sitting beside him when he was voting for the Patriot Act, and he was a friend, and generally he voted pretty good. I said, "Why are you voting for this?" He says, "Don't you know what it's doing?" "Yeah, I do, and it's bad." But he said that, how am I going to explain it back home? This sort of thing. The pressure there's a political pressure, whether it's welfare state for food stamps for people or whatever. There's always some pressure there. And some people have argued, and you have to pay attention to their argument, that the government is a reflection of the people. We talk about cleaning up the Congress, and we should, and the more we do, and the more we point out what they're doing, I think the better, because I can't say you shouldn't do it because I tried it, and who knows whether it did any good or not, only time will tell. But if we do that, we have to get to the point of what should you reject, and that is using force. People have their own lives. They're born with natural rights. They can do whatever they want with their life and their money. They have a responsibility to take care of their families. But they can do whatever they want. except for no force against another person. You can't deny liberty to somebody else. You can't deny their freedom by controlling all their income. You can't deny their liberty by taking total control of their educational system. That's the use of aggression in an evil way. So if you don't have any belief and confidence that free people are pretty good at dealing with things. I think the remarkable thing and the best outcome of the COVID lockdown was the parents waking up and assuming some responsibility, and they're still upset. And we'll find out whether that's going to still be there in November, because they are very, very upset with it and all this nonsense. And then one thing that you might say, well, at least you have to have a government. If somebody's going down the street shooting and killing everybody, don't you have to have, authority, to calm the person down or take care of the person who's denying liberty to others? Well, if it were limited to that, and most people, and I agree with that too, that you should deal with that. But the whole thing is that the people will always overextend and do whatever they have to, and it becomes a money issue too, because people benefit from it, which makes everything worse. But how does it end? Is it going to end by getting 10 or 15 better people in the Congress this term? That'll help, because they'll be sending out a message. But the people's attitudes have to change. They have to decide what they want. And without that, it doesn't work. But that's where I think we're making some progress. I really do believe there's a lot more people. I've been, working at this since the early 1970s, when I got interested in monetary policy and economics back in the early 70s. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot more people now that talk about the Federal Reserve in a healthy manner, and also talk about the reason why we should have a sound currency. And they know the word Austrian economics, and they know the word about the non-aggression principle. That you can't initiate aggression, and that there is such a thing as a higher law and natural rights that come not from the government, but they come when we're born, and that protecting those rights should be the significant issue that we deal with. Providing and protecting the right of the individual, and then if they do not do like you think they should, which not a lot of them won't do it, they have to suffer the consequences. We have a system today that if you have an economic system designed, to interfere and tell everybody what they can do, and send out contracts and manipulate interest rates and all. So some inefficient company is really inefficient, just bombs out and he goes bankrupt. Oh, but it was not his fault. He was doing his best. So we have to help him out. So let's get some money. Let's take money from the companies that ran a good company, gave a good product, and had some money in the bank because the people supported him. Let's take money from him because he has too much. Punish the successful to take care of the unsuccessful. That's not the way the market works. And until we understand that, and the rejection of all aggression, we're going to have a problem. But like I say, I think more and more people are beginning to understand exactly what I'm talking about. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.